now let's go back to the Google Plus Hangout. We have with us Jim Kircher from the 9 Network. You also know Joe from Harry Potter. No, I'm sorry. She just has an amazing stack of books behind her back there from the St. Louis Beacon. And keeping calm and carrying on is Alex Enan, blogger you will know as Next STL. Alex, you're on the big screen. Let's jump in with you. I know Prop R is something that you were passionately for. Your thoughts post-election, and also specifically, it wasn't that long ago, I can remember covering a story where this was first introduced, and it really seemed to move fast from an idea to a passing proposition.
Well, we have to remember that this effort failed many times, 1957, 81, 83, 2004. So this is a long time coming, and something that a lot of people have thought was necessary for literally half a century. So it's a big deal. And I think what it will put in place is changes that will actually change the structure of what an alderman does, which I think is really probably the more important issue in the city.
And I know you believe it will also help with the communication at City Hall too, inside City Hall.
Well, I think what it'll do is show that aldermen need to do more legislating for the city. They're the ones who need to tell us what's important in the city, what's the direction of the city, what's the plan for the city. And currently they deal with, trash pickup and down trees. And there are methods to deal with that in other places. And I think one thing that really stood out for me that still hasn't been talked about very much is that, St. Louis stood alone, far and away, having the largest number of representatives per resident, for a city of its size anywhere in the country. So, if we were Chicago, they're legendary for having 50 aldermen, but they represent 4 times as many residents as an alderman in the city of St. Louis. And so, what was missing in the conversation is that other cities have found a way to provide services, whether it's trash or, other issues that our aldermen deal with all the time. And so the reality is our aldermen should not be doing that. And they need to be legislating. They need to be representing the city and building a better city.
Joe and Jim, let's talk. I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead. I cut you off.
Yeah, no, I was just going to jump right in because I've been thinking a lot about this. And very often, I think, historically speaking, the current Board of Aldermen setup was part of the reforms of a long time ago. And I think when the city looks at these things, it's usually for one of 2 reasons, either to get rid of corruption or to improve efficiency. And back in 1914 and before that, we had 2 houses. We had a strong mayor and we had 2 houses in the city hall, a Board of Aldermen and city council. And, so they moved to do some things. But I think over the years, we've looked at these reforms in terms of how do we improve that in terms of modern times and how do we do that moving forward. I think maybe the really smart piece of this was to put it 10 years off.
Jim, you look remarkably well for having covered City Hall in 1914, I must say. Let's go statewide a little bit and back to what we were just talking about at the table, Prop B. Joe, this is not the first time we've tried to raise taxes on cigarettes. Were you surprised at the outcome?
Not entirely. They have put this on the ballot twice before. It's lost narrowly twice before. And all 3 times, the opposition mounted the same kind of campaign. They had these little placards on top of gas pumps saying that there was like a $7,000 increase, a 7,000% increase, something like that.
Right, 760%.
Correct, but the point was that the people getting their gas then think it has something to do with their gas. Yeah. And and they also had pretty effective TV ads. I think the supporters, for whatever reason, have never been able to come up with a strong enough campaign and enough ad money to really counter that, because the way the opposition has killed it has been the same campaign every time.
We have about 45 seconds left here. I want to switch to one other topic, and that is, for the first time in, I believe, 150 plus years, St. Louis will now have control of its police department. Alex, what were your thoughts on this passage?
Yeah, well, I think with a lot of things, we're just frankly behind good government practices here. It's St. Louis, and now Kansas City is the only city left that doesn't control its own police department. And I understand that locals claim that, if you put the city in charge of it, there's going to be corruption and there's chances for things to go wrong. But frankly, we've got to start somewhere. So we have to bring the police force back into the city and deal with what comes. But we have to start with that. So it's a great thing that passed.
You know, these things have been talked, and Joe, you know this, they've been talked about for years and years. I think it's pretty remarkable that these two city-directed propositions passed in the same year, and you have to be thinking about what's next on the reformers' mind. County offices, strong mayor, re-entry into the county. I think all of these things, I think, will enter in the conversation now.
We'll leave it.